Hey, Vlad here, devinside.com. Welcome to another video. In the previous video, we talked about Scala FMT, which is a code formatting tool for Scala. Today, we're going to talk about Scalafix, which is a linter and also a refactoring tool, which Scala FMT uses behind the scenes. Both Scalafix and Scala FMT were created by the same guy who also created Metals, which is a language server for Scala, which we talked about a few videos ago. All right, enough talking. Let's get right to it. I'm in an Ubuntu 18.04 virtual machine, and the same as Scala FMT, Scalafix can be installed as a CLI and also as an SBT plugin. We're going to start with an SBT plugin, and for that we need a quick Hello World project. So let me open the terminal. Let's go to dev. Let me press LL. So we have Scala FMT playground from the previous video. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a directory called Scalafix-playground ground like this, and we're going to open it with Visual Studio Code, Scala Fix, come on, Fix Playground like this. Okay, I don't think that we will need the terminal, so maybe we can actually close the terminal like this. All right, so let's start by creating our typical structure. We're going to have project build.properties, and as of right now, we have the SBT version 1.2.8, and let's create another file. I'm going to call it build.sbt, and we're going to add the SBT plugin, which is going to come from ch.epfl, which is the university where Scala was created by Martin Adorsky. So we're going to have spt-scalafix, and the version is going to be 0.9.5, like this. Okay, yeah, unable to format, blah blah blah. Okay, hold on. Let's create another file, and we're going to call it build.spt, and we're just going to set the Scala version to 2.13.0. We're going to say out of start server false. And by the way, since spt1, I think we actually don't need the spaces over here. Okay, but still, I'm gonna have it for better visibility. Okay, so let's also create a scalafmt.conf like this. We're going to set the version to 2.00. All right, so let me collapse that. Let me just create a source main Scala main.scala like this. And let me just copy paste that. So I'm just going to have a super tiny main method like this, which just prints out a hello world. And yeah, Scala FMT because I saved. Okay, so we're going to open the terminal. We're going to type in SPT, and in the meantime, we will also import the build. In fact, I'm going to wait for pressing enter. Let me just run the main first. All right, that was a typo. Why didn't you guys tell me? Scala version like this. Okay, reload and run. And let's also now import the build. And I'm going to cut out this whole thing from the video. Cool. So let me just clean up a few things, close the others, collapse the sidebar like this. Let's create more space in the terminal, because what we'll do now is we'll press Control L, and what we'll do is we'll say Scalafix -help like this, and it will download a few things, and it will tell us all the cool things that we can do with Scalafix. Now, similarly to Scala FMT, you can have a config with all of your rewrite rules, and then you would just say, Scalafix, and it will run all the rules. But contrary to Scala FMT, you can actually also run individual rules, and you have auto completion, so we can say Scalafix and then press space and then press tab, and it should show us the rules. So we have the disable syntax, linking implicit class val, no auto tuple, no valid for comprehension procedure syntax, remove unused. Okay, so we have only these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rules, and you can actually define rules on your own. And in fact, the next video is going to be exactly about that. We're going to create an entire rule completely ourselves. All right, so let me collapse this a little bit, and let's try to use one of them, like for example this procedure syntax. Okay, so it replaces deprecated procedure syntax with explicit unit equals. Okay, so let's just do p and then press tab and then run it, and nothing should happen because we're actually not using procedure syntax anywhere. But we can start. So for example, we could have over here, instead of extends app, we could have def main with args array of string. Okay, so usually you would have unit equals like this, but let's forget that real quick and do that like this, and let's remove that like this. Okay, so now we're gonna have a main. It's gonna close over here. Let me save this. Scala FMT fixed all the indentation for me, which is super awesome. So now we can go over here and we can say Scalafix procedure syntax, and it just inserted this colon unit equals for us. I was actually kind of surprised. Did we even see a warning? Because I believe that Bloop should show us a warning. Did we do everything correctly with Bloop? Let me actually import it again. Because usually Bloop should show us a warning, and we also want SPT to show us a warning. So let's also go to the build file again, build.spt, and let's also hold up. Let me see if it does something. No, it doesn't. Maybe I can close it and open it again. No. All right. Anyway, let's go to build.spt and let's go to Scala C options. Oh my God, Scala C options ++ equals a sequence of options, and we're going to use deprecation like this. Okay, maybe if we import now, and let's also go to our terminal. And by the way, in SPT 130, we'll be able to recognize that there was a change for build SPT and reload automatically if we use continuous compilation. All right, let's go here and let's go there. Okay, now actually Bloop shows us something because we configured it for SPT. It says procedure syntax is deprecated, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. But now SPT should also do the same thing for us. So if we go to the terminal and if we clean, come on, compile. If we clean, if we compile now, it should show us exactly the same warning. Yeah, so it shows us this warning. So if we clean again and if we run this rule, right, Scalafix procedure syntax, come on, procedure syntax like this. Okay, if we do compile now because we cleaned already before, now the warning is gone. All right, let me collapse the sidebar. Let's try some other rule. So let's go and say Scalafix tab, and okay, so we have let's try remove unused. Removes unused imports in terms that reported by the compiler on the -warn flag. All right, so let's go and use it. Remove unused. Okay, like this. All right, something obviously went wrong. We have two error messages. The first one says the semantic DB Scala C compiler plugin is required to run semantic rules like remove unused. To fix this problem for this SBT shell session, run Scalafix enable and try again. All right, well, Scalafix enable. Let's try again. And it didn't help at all. So this enable thing didn't really help. Okay, so we have another message that says to fix this problem permanently for your build, add the following settings to your build. Add compiler plugin Scalafix semantic DB. So this this val, it's just a val was the identifier for the plugin, and it's defined in the Scalafix plugin, right? And also add this range position option. Okay, and there is a second error. The Scala compiler option warn unused is required to use remove unused. Now this also means that we're not getting warned about things that are unused. So let's have some things that we're not using first, right? So let's, for example, have a private var bad string equals null like this. Okay, so let's have it over here because we can have private over there. Okay, so we don't see a warning. Let's also have an import something like java.util. Yeah, the first one. Okay, like this. So we want to see these warnings. So let's go to build SPT and actually add this flag. Let's copy it. Control Shift C. All right, and Control Shift B. warn unused like this. All right, so let's reload. Let's at least see that these warnings like this. All right, compile. All right, so now we see these warnings, and if we were to import, the whole Bloop thing, if we were to re-import the project for metals, it will also underline these things. But before we do that, let's actually go and add the compiler plugin, right? So let's try to do this whole Scalafix remove unused again, and what we should see is that this error message went away. So now we need to do these two. Now what's happening here is that Scalafix has two kinds of rules. It has syntactic rules where it just looks at the syntax and fixes stuff, and it has semantic rules, which means it requires the code to be compiled because it needs to look at the abstract syntax tree provided by the semantic DB plugin in this case, and then it can figure things out for you. So we need to we need to go and add this compiler plugin. But before that, let me say a few things about this -y range position flag. Now, this flag has been around for a while, and what it should do is basically it should tell the presentation compiler if you have a warning or if you have an error, not only at which position the error is, but also the entire range, so where it starts and where it ends. And apparently, it has some performance cost, and this is probably the reason why it's still not enabled by default, but maybe it will be enabled by default in the future version. Having said all that, when I was playing around, I actually managed to get this compiler plugin working without this flag. So I'm going to add it because I don't want to have any issues. But as I said, when I was preparing this video, I actually did not need this flag. But whatever, let's just go add it. And also let's do this: add compiler plugin, Scalafix semantic DB. Just copy that. Let's put it over here. Okay, let's reload the project and let's try to run the rule. All right, let's run the rule like this, remove unused. And as you can see, documentation is sometimes weird. So what's happening here is that it couldn't find this version. It's probably because we're already using Scala 2.13, and this version 4.19 was probably not published for Scala 2.13. Now, it is not uncommon for documentation to be outdated, which is why I always recommend you guys to submit pull requests for documentation. This is the easiest way to increase your street rep, and people are gonna love you for it. In fact, shout out to one of my patrons, Mr. Dmitri Kotobotov, who single-handedly translated the documentation for the Scala 2.13 collections library, and also I help reviewing it. All right, so I'm going to show you what to do in cases like this. So I already have a page open here, right? So you just go to search.maven.org. Most libraries are published to maven.org, and in this case you search for exactly what we have over here, right? So we're looking for semantic DB Scala C. Okay, semantic DB Scala C, maybe even -213. Let's try with that. Okay, so we're going to search for it, and we see it over here. And as you can see, the version is 4.20, right? So you can click directly on the version. You can also click on the artifact ID first. In fact, let's do that. Artifact ID, you see that there are two versions. There's 4.20 and 4.112, but there's no 4.19, okay? So that's exactly what we're seeing. So let's click on that. Let's go down here. We have this SPT thing. Let's copy that. Let's go back to our build. Let's also just paste it. Okay, so in this case, this is not a library dependency. This is going to be a compiler plugin. So let's just have a val over here, and I prefer to call my vals exactly the way the libraries are called. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it over here. Scala is not going to allow me to have a hyphen over here, so I'm going to use backticks like this, right? So we can go over here and just use it like this. So instead of the val that is coming from the Scalafix plugin, we're just going to do that. So let's reload. And let's go to our main method, and we're going to go and say Scalafix remove unused, and they should disappear in just a second. There we go, they disappeared. Now let me press Ctrl Z again, and let me go to our build file and fix a few things over here. So we want SPT to inject the -213 0 automatically for us. Now usually SPT injects just the -213, but what we can do is, first of all, we need this, right? What we can do is we can also go over here and we can say that we want the cross version. Okay, we want the full cross version. Okay, so we're gonna have it say cross version dot full, and we need this because this is a compiler plugin and it needs to be published for this exact, even the minor version of the compiler. Okay, so now because it's so kind of small-ish, we can also cut it out and use it directly over here. In fact, Scala FMT might fix it for us automatically. Yeah, there we go. All right, so let's go reload the project real quick, and also let's import the whole metals thing, import build, right? Because now we should also see the warnings over here coming from build through metals, showing us that that we're not using this import and that we're not using this var. So it's probably going to be underlined over here under bad. All right, that's exactly what we have. Okay, we have two of them and they're underlined. Metals is awesome. I love it. All right, now if you're watching this and SPT 130 is already out, then there's a chance that you won't even need to include the compiler plugin, because if you look to the documentation, it says that SPT 130 is going to have semantic DB support, right? So I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think you will just be able to do something like this. And again, it's not 4.19. In our case, it's 4.20 for Scala 2.13, and then you will not need to include the compiler plugin. I think it will do this for you. All right, before we continue playing with the other rules, let's also install the CLI. And as mentioned in the previous video, I started gathering installers. So if you go to install.devinside.com, and it will redirect you to GitHub, and it will search through my repositories for repositories that are called install hyphen, right? So we can also type in Scalafix over here, and we'll find the Scalafix CLI. And the same as I explained in the previous video, all we need to do is we need to copy these two lines. You also need Corsair, but if you go to Corsair, there will be other two lines that you need to copy. In fact, let's actually do this, okay? So I'm going to copy Corsair. I'm going to open a terminal, for example. I'm going to paste these two lines. I'm going to enter my password, and it will actually download something, but then it will be exactly the same version because I already have Corsair, right? So it's 200RC3-2 is the latest version, and now we're going to do the same thing for Scalafix. Just copy these and paste them in. I already typed in my password, so it's not going to ask me again, but now it uses Corsair to download everything that it needs for Scalafix, and it should be done in just a few seconds. Roll blah blah blah. Scalafix is now on the path. Okay, so we can do Scalafix --help, for example, and we should see something. There we go. Now, contrary to Scala FMT, Scalafix actually has auto-completion that you can install if you're using ZSH, because it has only auto-completions for ZSH. So if you do Scalafix --ZSH, then you will see all the auto-completions. So what you can do is you can just pipe it into a file. I'm going to call the file _Scalafix. Okay, so now in my home folder I have this file called Scalafix. Okay, so I'm just going to move it into a folder under user local share ZSH site functions like this, and now it's moved. Okay, so now what I can do is I can just open the ZSH RC file in my home folder. I'm going to open it with Visual Studio Code in this case, and what I can do is I can go to the bottom of the file, and over here we actually see the auto-completion for Bloop. And what we can do over here is we can say unfunction _Scalafix, right? So this is the file that we just moved there, and you can also say autoload -u _Scalafix like this. Okay, so now we're going to go over here into the terminal, and I don't want to kill SBT, so I want to go and create a new one over here. Okay, let's just in case also source the files ZSHRC. It probably already did because because we started a new shell. Okay, so now what we should be able to do is we should be able to say Scalafix and then --, or just tab like this and press tab. No, that didn't help. All right, because I forgot the -r. So -r should be like that. Let's press tab. Yeah, so now we see the auto-completion the same as before. So for example, we can do procedure syntax, and before I press enter, let's actually go and introduce it again. Right, so let's remove this like this. Okay, so now let's run it, and it should download something probably. No, it didn't. Okay, so now it just ran, but this time was a CLI. Okay, now let's try the other rule, which is the R, remove unused. Okay, like this. Right, it says Scala compiler option, blah 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 blah. In essence, what happened is that Scalafix is not smart enough to understand that we're actually in a folder with an SBT project, and that the SBT project set it up in such a way. So we need to do some of these things ourselves. So what we need to do is, first of all, we need to pass in the compiler option, and we do this as follows: -scalac -options. And we can just pass this one in. We don't need the quotes. Okay, so we're going to copy that, and we're going to paste it in like this. So what you see now is says an error that it did not find the semantic DB information. It wants it for 3 files, for the build file, for the main file, and for the other build file. But we're just going to fix the main file, so we actually care only about this one. And if we open the sidebar and actually go to target, Scala 213 classes, meta, and semantic DB, and there we go. This is the file that it needs. And what we can do is we can pass another flag to ask Scalafix to automatically try to figure this out, where this file lies. Okay, so we can just say -auto maybe we even have auto completion. No, we don't. Class path like this. Okay. So now, in fact, it should find it. As you can see, it still didn't find the one for build and the one for project build, but it found the other one, and therefore it was able to figure out that these guys are missing. All right, so let me press Control Z again 2 times. Actually, let me save the file. We're done playing with the CLI, so I'm going to close this one, and yeah, terminated with exit code 8 for some reason. All right, so let's go and create a config file so we can actually start playing around. So we can just start running Scalafix inside of our folder and run it. In fact, it would work from the CLI as well. So similarly to Scala FMT, we can create a file called .scalafix.conf. Right, so it's also hawkon and it's in the wrong directory. Move it over there. Okay, like that. Collapse target. Okay, so we have Scala FMT conf and we have Scala fix conf. What do I have in Scala FMT conf? Nothing. Version 2.0. Okay, so I'm going to go to Scala fix conf and we're going to enable some of the rules. So we have all of the rules like this. This is just an array called rules. So we have some of the semantic rules, right? Semantic, right? Is it? Oh man, come on. Yeah. All right. So we have the semantic rules, no auto tupling like this. We also have the remove unused, right? So all of these rules that are specified over here will run every time we just say Scalafix, right? And also we have the syntactic rules. Let me actually have space over here like that. All right, like this. So we have the disable syntax, and this one is actually just a linter, right? So it doesn't only have rewrite rules, it also has linter rules, right? So it's gonna show you a bunch of warnings. We're gonna play around with these in just a few seconds, okay? So I'm gonna have leaking implicit class val, and again, right? All of these, they're coming from Scalafix space tab from this, okay? This no val in for comprehension. Let's actually copy this one, put it over here, and remove unused. We already have it. The one that is missing is where is it? Procedure syntax. This one. Okay, copy and paste it like that. Okay, like this. Let's save. All right, so if we look at this no auto tupling thing, then it will say inserts explicit tuples for adapted argument list for compatibility with -no adapted args. The issue is that this flag does not exist anymore. In fact, it's probably the wrong flag anyway, right? So let me copy that and let me go to the build SPT. So I'm going to try to insert it like this, okay? And I'm going to say not now. I'm going to press enter over here. I did something. Hold on, like that. Okay, like this. Okay, so let's reload, and if I'm right, then the compiler is going to say that this flag actually doesn't exist. If I run the code, yeah, so it says bad option, why no adapted args. In fact, I believe the documentation is incorrect about this one. So the actual flag, so there are two flags. There's why no adapted args, which I believe is not going to compile if you actually have adapted args, and the other one is called -y warn adapted args, and I believe both of them actually don't exist anymore, right? So let me add also the other one. It's -y warn adapted args, right? And this one also doesn't exist, right? So notice that when we reload, everything's fine, but only when we run, it says, okay, it still complains about this one. Hold on. Reload and run, right? So it complains about this one as well. The thing is that it was there for 2.12.8, right? So in fact, 2.12.9 is already out, but let's just use 2.12.8 real quick. So if I'm gonna reload that, let's go and run our code. Okay, why warn adapted arg still did not exist for 2.12.8? Really? Oh, it's not adapter, it's adapted. Okay, hold on. Adapted. All right, so let's go back to 2.13.0. All right, let's reload real quick and let's run it again. See, it still doesn't exist. Okay, so let's go to 2.12.8 and reload. And now we can run. And it compiles. Okay, so now this time it actually worked. Okay, so it just ran. So if we go and create an example for this, okay, so if we go and I don't know, let's go here. Let's have a def method, and we're gonna have string int, right, which is a tuple unit, and we're just gonna print line t. Okay, so if we go over here and instead of printing out hello world, why don't we just say method? And now usually what you should do is you should do this. Right, so it's either hello 12 like this, or hello and then an arrow over here, or, which is my favorite, this, right, like this, hello and 12, right? But what Scala will allow you to do is it will also allow you to do this, right? And it will basically insert these parentheses for you. Okay, so if we do that like this, okay, so if we run that code, it will actually work, right? So it will print out hello 12. Oh, what is it? Call site initialization. Okay, so we need to have this method above, like that, like this. Okay, let's run it again. Out of memory. Oh, come on, are you kidding me? There we go. SPT. Let's clean just in case, and let's run. And by the way, because we enabled this flag and we're now on Scala 2.12.8, it should actually display the warning, right? So first of all, it displays hello 12, right? So this one worked, but we should also see a warning saying that argument adaptation actually happened, okay? So now we can use Scalafix to actually rewrite that rule, and because we have it in a config, we can just say Scalafix and it will run all of these rules, okay? So all of these, everything over here will be fixed. Let me actually remove that so we maybe see everything. In fact, Scalafix should remove this line. Scalafmt will remove this line. Okay, so if I save, okay, it didn't remove this line. Okay, like this. All right, so let me create more space like that. Okay, so we see basically the whole file like that. Okay, so now we can say Scalafix, and it should fix all of these rules for us. Most importantly, these parentheses. It did that. It fixed all of the rules. Okay, so I just wanted to show you this rule. So now we can go to build SPT, and I actually have no idea how it's going to be fixed in the future. I asked this question in on the Gitter channel for Scalafix, but there was no answer until now. Okay, so let's revert it to 2.13.0. So I have no idea what's going to happen to it in the future. Okay, not now. In fact, I actually want to do it manually. Metals import build. And let's go back to our terminal and let's also kill SPT over here. Let's also start it again. There will be probably some logs, but eventually it's going to figure itself out. Let me actually also close this one and close that shrc. We don't need this anymore. Let me also close the sidebar. I don't think that we will need this. Okay, I also don't think that we will touch the build file. All right, so we have our file again, we have our Scalafix config, so let me just demonstrate these few rules for you. So the next one is going to be this one. If we have a, let's have it over here. So if we have a final implicit class, any ops with a val self any, and let's also extend any val. All right, so this extension of any val will force us to use a val over here. Okay, usually if you just have an implicit class, you would do it like this. Right, let's actually try this for now. So we're gonna have def green, which is a string. We're gonna have console dot green plus self plus console dot reset, like this. Okay, so this is not going to compile, so if we try running this, in fact, let's try actually calling this. Let's remove this method and let's remove that. Let's actually print line hello world and let's do dot green over here. Okay, so what it now tells us over here is that we actually should I can't use my mouse. Okay, so it says value class parameter must be a val and not be private this. Okay, so as soon as we make it a val, it will actually work. But the problem is that this self thing actually leaks out. So we can actually also go and say self, and it's not ideal. You know, there's nothing like super wrong about this, but it's not ideal. So usually what you would do is you would say private over here, private like this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run my Scalafix, and it will fix it for me. It will just go over here and insert the private thing. Okay, so I didn't touch anything. This is not some code editing magic. Okay, so now this thing doesn't compile. Great. Let's actually press Ctrl Z a few times because actually not. Let's not do that. Let's destroy this. Let's destroy it because I'm kind of getting tired of all these warnings. Okay, so let's remove that. Remove that. Okay, so we're back to our regular hello world. All right. So for the next thing, I would like to remind you that we actually have a Scala FMT rule. Right, so Scalafmt also has its own rules, and one of these rules is prefer curly force. Right, so we played around with Scalafmt already in the previous video. Okay, so for my next trick, I'm gonna have a for comprehension, and I'm just gonna print out everything over here. So I'm gonna have a for comprehension that is going to produce my chessboard, the same one as I did in the previous video. So I'm going to have A to H, and it's going to come from 1 to 8. And also in this case, I'm going to go and say val tuple equals cn, and I'm just going to yield in the tuple like this. So if I'm going to save the file, then Scala FMT is going to rewrite this for comprehension with the curly syntax like this, right? And over here, we're also going to get a warning, which is going to say val key. Oh, come on. Val keyword in for comprehension is deprecated. Instead, bind the value without val Scala C, right? So now we can just run Scalafix, and one of our rules is going to remove this val. Okay, so it's the rule. The previous one was this one, and this one is the no val in for comprehension. All right, cool. So the last rule, which is a disable syntax rule, it is actually a linter, as I already mentioned, and it has a bunch of settings which I'm going to copy paste from my script, right? So I'm going to have a bit more space over here. These are most of the settings. There's actually 2 more which are not important for this video. So it will basically warn you if you use vars, if you use throws, if you use nulls, if you use returns, and so on. Okay, so let me just go and set all of them to true. And by the way, we don't need to reload the entire project for this, right? So it's just a file that will be read on runtime. Okay, so let's go and I don't know, let's create a var bad string null like this. Okay, so now we see this. It says hold on, what does it say? Local var bad in method main is never used. Okay, so this is coming from blue. But now if we run Scalafix, it will actually say, it will actually not compile. Okay, so if we go up, oh, that's actually unfortunate because Scalafix actually removed it because we're not using it. Let's actually print it out so that Scalafix doesn't remove it like this. Okay, so Scalafix like this. Okay, so it doesn't compile. So if we go over here, so first of all, we have a warning. Local var bad in method main is never updated. Consider using immutable val. Okay, and over here we have error disable syntax dot var mutable state should be avoided. Okay, so the var is on the line and the null. Okay, so we have null should be avoided. Consider using option instead. Now the next thing that I'm going to show you is how to disable Scalafix for some parts of the code. As you have seen before, for example, it removed this line for us. We're going to go and say Scalafix, and we're going to have dot off, and we're going to have dot on over here. Okay, so now if we run Scalafix, it should at least not remove it, right? So it should still lint it, but it should not remove it if I spell it correctly, obviously. Scalafix like this. Okay, so let's run it again, and it should stay. Also, it's possible to disable Scalafix with some annotations, but you cannot apply annotations to all of the rules. And I also heard people complaining about some bugs with these annotations, so that they, didn't always work. But apparently, these comments they always work. So I'm just gonna always use these comments from now on. What you also can do, for example, in this case, we actually want to see the linting, but we don't want Scalafix to remove this option to remove this line. So we can actually go and grab the rule that we don't like, which is remove unused. Okay, and we can go over here and we can just do that. Let's just pray that it actually works. Okay, so now it should only ignore the remove unused rule. So that's what it did. It didn't remove this, but it still displays the linting things. Okay, you can also go and have a comma over here and you can say, for example, for disable syntax, don't warn me about the null, for example, like this. Okay, so we can run it again, and it still warns me about the var, but it doesn't warn me about the null. Okay, so if I make this bigger, right, so this is still the warning from the Scala compiler, this is the warning from Scalafix, but in this case only about the var, not about the null as it happened before. Cool, now let me remove this. Let me just have a print line hello world over here, hello world, like this. Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to show you is how to actually download rules that other people wrote, and you can download them straight from Maven, or also straight from GitHub, or even just from a URL, so from some local file or some distant file. So there is an example Scalafix rule written by Olaf himself. So it is over here. This is a GitHub repository, and we're going to do something similar actually in the next video, where we're going to create our own Scalafix rule. So if we search for it on Maven Central, I actually found it. It is over here, example Scalafix rule, right? So you can just copy that over here, And what you can do is you can go back here, you can go back to the build file, and usually you would add library dependencies like this. You would say I mean, in fact, I can copy paste, right? So you would say library dependencies, blah blah. But in this case, this is a Scalafix rule. So what you need to do is you need to say this build, and this build is really important, don't forget that. And instead of library dependencies, you can say Scalafix dependencies like this, plus plus equals, and we're going to use a sequence, okay, in case we have multiple rules, okay. And now we can copy that, we can put it over here, we can remove this line, and you don't actually need this hyphen to 12 over here. You can just use an ampersand over here, and it will figure it out. Notice that this rule was written for Scala to 12, and we're actually using Scala to 13, right? So this rule was for the Scalafix to 12, right? So it's still gonna work. So we can just save this file, and yeah, let's not do this. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so let's reload. Okay, and there should be no space like that. Let's reload. All right, cool. Now in this particular case, this rule, it's just an example rule. So all it will do is it will go to all of your files and it will add a comment at the bottom. Okay, but if I have more space over here, so we should be able to say Scalafix space tab, and we should see that that is downloaded this rule, and we should see it over here. Where is it? Remove unused. There we go. It's called a syntactic rule, and it's at the bottom over here simply because it doesn't use a description. Okay, but it works, right? So if you go over here and say syntactic rule, it will run and it will add this comment over here. You can also run it straight from GitHub, which is not entirely going to work. So SPT will manage to download it, but it will actually not run. So if I'm gonna reload this. Okay, so you have some simple expansion things. So if you go for Scalafix and you just say dependency, and over here you're going to say syntactic rule. In fact, what I'm showing you now is not how to download it from GitHub, but how to download it from Maven directly. So it's basically doing exactly the same thing as we did over here, but it just runs it automatically without adding it to the build. Okay, so you just say syntactic rule add, and then you have this com.gerson like this. Let me remove the cursor. Okay, now we're going to have column example hyphen Scala fix hyphen rule, and we're going to have the version 1.3.0, and this reminds me about Ammonite actually. Okay, let's see if it's going to do something. Okay, let me remove this comment first. Okay, let's just run it again, and then bam, without having it in our build file, it actually ran the rule. Let me remove that real quick. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to run it directly from GitHub, but it actually didn't really work for me, as I said. So the rule will be downloaded, but it will not compile because I believe it uses an older version of semantic DB. Okay, so you do this by saying Scalafix hyphen rules equals GitHub colon of urpg, right? So we're going for this GitHub repository, this one. Okay, so we're going for all of urpg example Scalafix rule. So we're going to have slash example hyphen Scalafix hyphen rule. This is usually enough unless the rule is not called example Scalafix rule. So in fact, what is happening over here, if we go into Scalafix and we have rules and we have Scalafix over here, then see the rule is called underscore v1, and therefore we need to continue writing stuff. So we're going to have over here, we're going to have example Scalafix rule underscore v1 like this. Okay, so if I didn't make any typos, it should download the rule, but the rule is not going to compile. All right, so as you can see, it doesn't compile. And what you can also do is you can also go over here, you can just open this file, you can click on raw and just use that whole thing like this. Right, so this is just an alternative version just to pass in the file. So you can just say Scalafix hyphen rules equals and just paste the whole thing. Right, so now the same thing should happen. Right, so it downloaded it, but it didn't compile. The last thing that you can always do, if something doesn't compile, like in this case, you can actually try to download it and fix it yourself. Right, so you can go over here, you can just say clone, copy that. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to have that. Let's open a terminal like this. Let's go here. Let's clone the whole thing. Let's open it with Visual Studio Code example. Okay, so let me maximize that. The first thing that I always like to do is I like to see the properties file to make sure that it uses my version of SPT so that everything just goes a little bit faster. Then I'm going to look for build files. There's a build.spt Scalafix. Okay, over here. Now I've already played with this, so I know that for some reason the version is not specified over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over here. I'm going to say version equals, I don't know, 7.8.9 hyphen snapshot. Okay, and no, not now. Okay, 7.8 snapshot. Now we can open the terminal. Now what we need to do is we need to go inside of the Scalafix folder. I'm going to explain this actually in the next video when we're going to write our own rules. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to go and say publish local, and it will publish the 7.8.9 snapshot version. And I'm going to go to my other VS Code thing, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to say please use the 7.8.9 hyphen snapshot, and there is a reason why I'm doing this. No, not now. Let me see how far it got. 7.8.9. In fact, we actually closed the terminal. Where is it? We don't need the terminal. Okay, so we just have only this one. Okay, so download some stuff. It's gonna build the project real quick. I'm gonna cut it out from the video if it actually gets too long, but it should be done in just a few seconds because it's just one simple rule. It's just one file. Okay, I ruined something already. Build. Yeah, there's no comma here. I need a comma. No, not now. Retry. All right, so now it's finished. Let's go to my other Visual Studio Code instance, and I changed the build file. So now I need to reload, and now I should run my code, and it should run normally. But if I'm going to try to run this rule, Scalafix, what was it called? Oh, come on, what are you doing? Syntactic. No, it was called example something, right? No, how was it called? Syntactic rule. Yeah, syntactic rule like this. As you can see, it ran, but it actually didn't do anything, right? So if you look into our main file, it actually didn't do anything. But if we go to our build and switch to the, to the proper version, like this, we reload. Let me switch to the main file, and we run the rule again. Then it actually is going to do something, right? In just a second, it's going to appear. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you, right? So even though it compiles, it doesn't mean that it runs. And in the next video, where we're going to create our own rule, you're going to see actually what happened. So if I open the rule actually, so that's Scala rule. How's it? Rule.scala. This one. This is the file that I need. In the next video, you're going to see that these things basically don't exist anymore. This where is it? Syntactic. What was it complaining about? Syntactic, semantic. Yeah, these doc things, they don't exist anymore. So now it's called actually, in this case, a syntactic document and semantic document, right? So it's not just called doc and semantic doc. In any case, this brings me to the website called index.scala-lang.org over here, and you can search for something like Scalafix. And if you're lucky, you might find some rules that other people publish, like for example this one, Scalafix no infer, right? So it looks like it's probably a linter. I haven't played with it, but you can go and check it out for yourself. All right, as already mentioned, in the next video, we're actually going to create our own rule. As always, it's been Vlad, devinside.com. Don't forget to like this video if you did, subscribe if you want to improve the developer inside you, and if you find my videos valuable, consider supporting me on Patreon. But most importantly, take care.